Surely that is what is needed in the Christian church today. We need men and women who have heard and responded to the call of Christ. People who have tuned out the world and have tuned in on Christ. I think the one way to put it is this, that when Jesus calls, ready, the men and women of the church ought to rise up and say, ready, I ready. I'm persuaded that the sickness of the church is not to be found in its structures as some think. I've been in ministry a long time now, and people over there at Winford Drive have remade the church and remade the structure half a dozen times, and that nothing has changed. Second-hand knowledge of Christ is what too many members of our church have. Many members of the church, and I'm sure they're here this morning, they know a good deal about Christ. They've been to Sunday school, they've been to church fairly frequently. They know a good deal about Christ. But they have never heard his voice. Or if they have heard, they've never answered saying, here am I. Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? The modern church lacks commitment. And I think that's the real reason why the church today is experiencing weakness. To take an opposite example, think about William Booth, the founder of the Salvation Army. What a commitment he made. When someone asked him the secret of his great life and his success in the Salvation Army movement, he said, Christ has had all there is of me to have, all the love of my heart, all the energy of my soul, all the devotion of my mind. Now I suggest to you that's commitment. Unless we can say something like that, there's no way that the Master can use us. Apart from that complete commitment, we are really quite useless to Christ. A member of a large band of useless Christians. Oh, I know we may try to do the Lord's work in our own strength, but our lack of commitment will undermine all the labor we do, and bring them to nothing. Is that not the meaning of his own teaching about the vines and branches? In that passage he tells us plainly enough that no branch can bear fruit of itself, but only if it remains united with the vine. No more, says he, can you bear fruit unless you remain united with me. The secret of a useful and fruitful life is union with Christ. Complete commitment and communion with God's only begotten Son. 11 of the disciples made that commitment, and despite their wavering on occasion, they remained basically loyal to the one who had called them. They were useful to him and productive in the Lord's service. And as each one of them came to the end of the road, they heard those wonderful words of Christ, well done, good and faithful servant, enter into the joy of thy Lord. Only one of the 12 was lost. And he was lost, I think in part at least, because his response to Christ was incomplete, less than total. And you know there is a dreadful peril in partial commitment. Better no commitment at all than a half-hearted one that yields nothing of real worth. track that Judas wanted. But what happens when we make a complete commitment? Two things. Two things happen. First of all, he permits us to share his society, his friendship, and his fellowship. As our text says, he ordained 12. What for? That they should be with him. That's the first blessing they received. An invitation to join the Jesus circle. When we hear and answer his call, we become his personal friends, his boon companions. Men and women, I want to say this to you. It is far better to walk and talk with Jesus for even 1 hour than to spend a whole lifetime apart from him. There's nothing in the world or out of it that can compare with the thrill and the joy of union with Christ. You know, people in love, they use all kinds of extravagant words, terms to express their joy and rapture in their beloved. Now, I'm not Mark, so I'm not going to sing. How lucky you are. But sometimes when people are really in love, they learn to sing something like this. I'm in heaven, when I hold you in my arms. That's precisely, exactly the experience of those who find themselves living in the presence of Christ. As the hymn writer says, oh, the pure delight of a single hour that before thy throne I spend. When I kneel in prayer and with thee, my God, I commune as friend with friend. Anyone who has entered into friendship with Christ and who can sing that old hymn, he walks with me and he talks with me and he tells me I am his own. The joys we share, we carry there, none other can ever know. Anyone who can truly from the heart sing that, mean it, is about to have a life that is unspeakable good and glorified, even when it is filled with pain and suffering. In my over 50 years in the ministry, I have often been at the bedside of a dear soul who is suffering physical pain, but upon the face there is a look of glory and transcendent joy. For these people, though there's pain, they know the joy of the Lord. To be with him, that's so